Alright, back at it again. The head was checked by the machine shop, the original one. Come to find out I had a crack in it. So, Duns went to our local salvage Toyota guy and said, hey, I need a head for a 22 RE. Okay, no problem. He shows the head as it sits right here, except it didn't have the cam in it. But evidently it's fresh for rebuild. He provided paperwork where it was just rebuilt by the local machine shop. So, I just got this thing sitting on here now. I went ahead and installed all these main bearing caps. There's 3 of them. There's also arrows on these guys, so make sure that you put them back where they go. This one's numbered 1, 2, and then 3 on the cap, but all the arrows point towards the front of the engine. So I went ahead and set this on here. This thing does spin pretty easily, but remember, just like we done our main bearing caps, you want to make sure you add oil or some assembly lube inside of here. Do that. Another thing is to make sure before you put this thing on there, since the engine's good and clean, make sure you clean off all those gaskets. That way you don't have to worry about it. Another thing I would suggest to do, which I already have done, is these studs that are still sticking on here, like this one, I run a die over top of this right here, on top of each one of these studs, so that way I know that it's going to thread really, really easy. That's mostly vital for your exhaust side, because these bolts get really hot, and if you've ever had it happen, if not, then you're fortunate, but these will break off really easy because they get really hot. So the temperature causes it to expand and contract. So they're constantly expanding, contracting, so make sure you run if you don't run a die over the intake side, make sure you run one over this side. Another thing I went ahead and done was I went ahead and swapped out this is the timing chain tensioner. It come in our kit. Haven't got the timing chain on there yet. Went ahead and swapped it out. One good thing about the engine builder, which I've seen, is, and I don't know if you can see this in the video or not. Try to steady it for you. Made in Japan, OSK. This is the original Toyota timing chain tensioner that comes with this kit. Not only, like I mentioned previously, it also comes with the steel rails for your timing chain, so that way you don't have to worry about it coming off. Or if it does break, it should not break, because that's usually your timing chain failure is the plastic tensioner. Either which way, so went ahead and got that installed. Not done anything but just set this head on here and set this cam in place. The torque specs in the book are in these. I think they're 12 foot-pounds. They're not very tight. So make sure you torque these. Make sure you clean before you set this head over here. Make sure you clean all these ports and stuff out really, really well. If you're doing it at home, if you want to take it to your machine shop and have him clean it, that works too, or any other local place. So our next step will be to set the rocker arm body, I guess you would call it, on top of this, so that way we can torque this down, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that, because this is critical. If you put this on here and you tighten the bolt and it's tightened wrong, you're going to cause, as soon as it starts, it's going to bend one of these valves. So I'll run you guys through how to do that, and then we'll be well on our way. Alright, so in the process of putting this head on here, realized that this new head did have an issue. This right here, this thread right here inside this is shot. Tried changing the nuts, the other main bearing, with the other cam bearing caps that I had, and it's not the bolt, it's the hole. So I'm going to have to deal with that issue, which should be alright. We can take and we could take that right there and get us a longer bolt, so that way it'll go down in there farther, and then it'll hold this cap in place. But trying to move on with progress, went ahead and installed this timing chain cover, or timing chain. So let me give you guys a rundown. There's a notch inside this right here. You can see there's a notch right here. It's one on the other side. This sprocket will only go on one way. As you can tell right in there, possibly can tell, there's a dot. I don't know if you can see the dot or not. Anyhow, there's a dot on this, and it faces up. And the best way to make sure that you got this on here is this new chain that comes with this kit has 2 black links. Right there's the dot. There's one here. There's one on the opposite end that's black. That's how you know it faces out. Now you have to get this engine top dead center. Now you can take this head off if you'd like, if you've not torqued it down yet. Take this head off, and you can find your top dead center. However, if you read your Haynes manual, top dead center is, you see this key on the crank right here. You see this keyhole? This key only, when it's facing exactly 12 o'clock, the number 1 cylinder is at top dead center. So once you do that, if you just slide this out, which this goes to your oil pump, you look on the bottom, there's another mark. See the mark? The other link right here in this chain specifically is black. Now, I didn't check the one that come off of it. There could be a mark on it. Typically they are. I know there's at least one on it. But the only way these will go on here is that black mark lines up with this. And then when you roll this chain up, the other mark right there on that gear, the black mark goes there. So, pretty self-explanatory. This kit, like I said, our new kit come with the metal. This piece right here is metal on this, which is typically a failure that happens. So this one's metal. So basically, with this being metal, this one's still plastic. So you get your plastic one on this side. It comes with 2 new bolts. The metal one comes with 2 new bolts as well in this engine builder kit. So these are 14s, each one of these are. I looked for a torque spec and couldn't find one, so I just tightened them up snug. They should hold pretty well. The tensioner also comes with this kit, which I already showed you guys. Put that thing in there. Now, in order to get this on there, especially with this on here, get this chain over here, you have to pull this back with your hand, pull this tensioner back, which will give you just enough slack to get this on here. Now, I managed to get this up and over this, but there was still a gap right here. So what I done was I got it started on there, because there is a hole on, all the way through this cog, this sprocket. So I got it started a little bit. So here's the other key that goes to this hole, and I got it started. I got this bolt started. Then I just done it by hand, still using hand tools. Tighten it up really slowly, and when I did it, snapped right in place. Once it snapped in place there, I was able to let go of the tensioner I have right down here where my thumb's at. I was able to let go of that tensioner. Got right on there. They are a torque spec for this, but we haven't got that far yet. So once I get to that point, make sure you torque this. With it connected to the engine, it'd be the easiest to torque. However, you can't hold the engine still specifically unless you was taking sticks. I've seen guys stick rope down in here in order to hold that, but this thing's at top dead center. In case you didn't know, you can also take and stick your finger. I would urge you not to stick a screwdriver in there, but something plastic, and you can tell when that comes up. But there's no need to do that, because the book tells you as long as this keyway is facing straight up, this number 1's at top dead center, which is what we want. Since we got this cam, or this crank, or this cam sprocket lined up in this dot here, this tells me that these are lined up for top dead center as well. Another surefire way I can tell you that is, remember we took it apart, 1 and 4 were both all the way up, and then it was vice versa for 2 and 3. Well, as you can see, there's no lobe facing up in 1, and then you go back here to 4, there's no lobes facing up on it, which means this thing is at top dead center, which is good, because when you stick your distributor back in here to put your thing in time, it'll be in time. So now that we got that section done, next we get to follow by putting on a timing chain cover. If anybody's done a 22RE or own one for longer than, a year and a half, you've replaced a timing chain cover if you've drove this thing. A timing chain, because you've had to take this cover off. So pretty familiar with this. So I'm going to go ahead and bolt all this stuff right here back up. Once I get all this stuff bolted up, we'll move on to the next thing, which will be, I'm going to fix this bolt right here. Go get me another bolt from the parts store, since that one's stripped out. Then we'll be able to set this rocker arm assembly back on this and torque all these head bolts down as per the book. This bolt down in here taken care of. The torque spec for that is just, I think it's 14 foot-pounds. Hang on, let me check. Camshaft bearing cap bolts, 14 foot-pounds. Now my torque gauge only goes to 20 starting out, so couldn't really use a torque gauge, but 14 foot-pounds is just snug, guys. It's not really, don't tighten the piss out of it. Shouldn't have no issues. The next thing is, you want to look at your cylinder head bolts, which is what we're about to do. They say 58 foot-pounds. So what I've done was, on this side, basically I can't remember if I set this on here, there's guides on this side of this head. So when you're looking at the front of the engine, it will be the intake side. There are guides right here that this goes in. Now these right here, I took this off and I labeled this with a grease pen, as you can see forward, showing me that goes to the front of the engine. So all I done was I set this on here, and these right here will move left and right. Now you can buy a rebuild kit and replace all these springs in here and everything, but for this case and for our rebuild, it didn't come with it because we rebuilt the bottom end. The only top end pieces that come were new valve seals. So we didn't replace them. So basically you set that on there, take a soft mallet hammer, which is what I did, and I just tapped on this real lightly until those kind of seated in place. Now even though these are seated, these I just what I suggest you do, which is what I done, was just hand tighten these bolts down to make sure they're catching. So if there's an issue with this thread with any of these, you can go ahead and fix it now, or you can see the alignment's not right. Because if you put these on here and you don't make sure this thing is seated correctly, and you start torquing it down, you'll bend one of these valves, and you sure don't want that to happen. Another thing to keep in note here, as you can see on this side, you can still see this gap right here, because I'm not tightening this up. There's also another one right here, and I'm not really 100% sure if you can see it or not. But there's a gap right here too, on this side, because there's no guides on this side. The guides are just on that side, where that bolt goes in, and not on this side. So what we're going to do is look in your book. It tells you your torquing sequence and what to torque it to. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the torquing sequence, which I think it goes from inside and then moves to the outside, but I'll have to look. What I'm going to do is follow the torque sequence and just snug all these down, so that way I can make sure all these are actually seated correctly, because I don't want to start torquing it down and then have to worry about something being wrong. Another thing to keep in mind is that when this thing first starts up, this is not going to have any oil on it whatsoever around this cam here. So word of the wise is to put you some assembly lube on each one of these lobes through here, so that way you don't have any issues when you do startup. See, there's 2, 4, 6, 8, which makes sense. So make sure you put a little lube on them, so that way you don't have any issues with any of that. In the future, you also don't want to wear your cam lobe down before the oil gets pulled up through the bottom of the engine and into this thing. So put your little assembly lube on before you tighten any of these down. The torque sequence, I will find a picture of, which should be right here. Here's the torque sequence, or that's the loosening sequence. Sorry, take that back. Head bolt loosening sequence. So my idea is, if you're going to put it back on, my assumption is to just do it in the same order, but right here. Here's the tightening sequence. Okay, so we loosen it like this, and then we're going to tighten it like that. So just as I figured, it starts in the middle and works its way out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So outside to inside. This is what I went over earlier with making sure your chain is lined up right with the timing marks. So let's torque us down some bolts. By the way, these bolts that are on the top of this thing, I'm pretty confident, not 100%. I think they are 17s. And they are. These are 17 millimeters. So I took just about the entire engine apart with a 12, a 14, a 17, and a 19. That bolt's a 19. That bolt in front of that crank, it's a 19. So let's tighten these down in sequence. This thing's changed a lot since last recording. I kind of had my hands full with running back and forth, but as you can see, I got a new bolt. Put a new bolt inside the main bearing, or whatever, the 3 bearings, or the 3 caps that hold the cam down. Got the rocker arm set up, put back on, and the head bolts torqued down. Those are in the book. They're specific to a V6 or 22RE, so make sure you look them up. One other thing I did was, I think the owner of this engine is going to buy a new sticker, so I painted this with high heat paint which is technically used for a grill. But before I did that, what I done was I took and I cleaned it all off with our wire wheel in the middle, so that way it looks nice and clean. Then I just painted the rest of it with high heat. Now whenever you guys go to replace this head back on here, the air kit specifically comes with new of these for the front, and then there's one on the back, and a new gasket for this. Also comes with new these little rings here. The castle nuts are the old ones. That's what these are called, castle nuts. These are the old ones. These don't get torqued very tight, so don't torque the living dog pee out of this. You just want to get it pretty snug. Another thing is it also comes with a new one of these. Haven't got this one put down in there yet. I just got it sitting there for the time being. Another thing I went ahead while I was at it, I painted a block. Now if you wonder why there's black spots here and there, is because you can't see it, I don't think in the video, but that says 22R, so that way the owner would know. He wanted this light silver like this. He didn't want any other color. He wanted light silver. I asked him about like fixing this spot and this and that, and he said, I'm never going to see it, so just paint what you can see. So I taped up and painted what I could see, and that's all he wanted. He's paying for it. That's what the man wanted. That's what the man gets. Another issue with this new head, I didn't find out till I got to this step specifically. If you guys remember, on the water or the gooseneck where the thermostat goes, there's a bolt, there's an Allen bolt, it's in the bottom of it. I said, don't forget it. Told you I had trouble getting it off. Well, some shithead who had this previously decided they weren't going to get theirs, all they was going to pull it out without it. Luckily, they didn't ruin the head because I had it checked, but they ruined this thread. So now what we get to do is a thing called Helicoil. And they do make it in metric specifically for what we need. Show you guys what this is. Okay. So the first thing was, why didn't you just buy a longer bolt? Well, because the threads all the way back in there are pretty buggered up. So there's really no help in it. There are some threads in there, but it's pretty buggered. So the idea is, well, why didn't you just, even if I did drill this out and put a bigger bolt, it still has to go through that hole in this intake. So the idea is, I would have to drill the intake bolt and all to get through there, and that's not a very good idea considering it's aluminum. You don't know how much heat, because it's right underneath where the thermostat goes, so you know that's going to get hot. So that's not a very good idea. So what I've decided to do to fix this is use Helicoil. Now this is Helicoil, and how this works is, if you see these little round things right here, see they're hollow on the inside. So basically what happens is it comes with the tap to tap the outer one and the inside one, which is the black one. So basically what you do is you drill this to what it's supposed to be. After you drill this and get these smooth so that way it's not sticking out, you take this bigger bit right here, the silver one, you take that bigger bit and you're going to tap this, and that'll make a thread. Then you get one of these helicoils, which is these things right here, and all they are is threading. They can put that back in here. Well, I'm going to put some Loctite on mine because I hope to never have to take them back out again. Loctite on the outside of that, use that black piece that's in here, and you feed that in there and you tighten that up. Then we'll be able to set our intake gasket back on here and set our intake on here. Once we get our intake on here, we should be able to just tighten that down. Should look just like new. This is just one of the many things you'll run into when doing this, guys. So just be patient. Be patient with stuff. And if you're not sure, you've never heard of Helicoil, then look it up. It's pretty neat stuff. It helps save you a lot of time. Because the other option would have been, I've already torqued this down, though it's not got heated yet, the head gasket and stuff hasn't yet. The idea is if I was to take it off, I would feel obligated to put a new head gasket on it, because I won't have to worry about messing up the seal. Now, I've read and been told many times that it wouldn't hurt it, but I would just feel obligated to replace the whole head gasket. But I've already, as you can see, have the exhaust manifold mounted up here, which I will also tell you, take and put some take and put some of anise. There you go. Take and put some of these anise, guys. This is good on the back. If you read on the back, it says it's good from, what's it say? Negative 65 to 1800 degrees. See, 1800 degrees right there. So the idea is these are well withstanding the heat this engine is going to put out, because he's not racing it or anything like that. But if you take and you put some of that on these bolts right here, on each one of these bolts, you will never have to worry about them seizing up and you're going to take them off again and it breaking. So I took and put anti-seize on every single one of these bolts where all this heat's going to be, and I tightened them down. I think it's 38 foot-pounds. After I got that on here, next step I'm going to install that helicoil and get that going. Also, don't know why with the new this specifically, the owner specifically ordered a new water pump. Though there was nothing wrong with his old one, he ordered it from Teddy Engine Builder. I don't know if it was an oversight, and I checked the box and everything else over here and couldn't find it. But this water pump didn't come with these threads with nuts and bolts or anything. So what I done was went to the parts store and got 2 nuts and used the double nut method. Took these studs, and as you can see, they're threaded on the back. I took these studs and everything out off the old one and put them on the new one, and then reusing the same bolt. So that way, should be ready to go. Another thing I would urge you guys to do is once you get everything and stuff put on here, take your time and do it right. Because just an example is this: if that helicoil, if I wouldn't have run across and thought about using helicoil, I would have to take this to a machine shop where I assume they would have TIG welded aluminum in there, re-drilled and re-tapped that hole. That will cost a lot of money. That helicoil though was probably $28, $30. It's still a lot cheaper than taking that to the machine shop. Plus, if I took it off, like I said, I feel obligated to put a new head on, even though it's not supposed to bother it. I've been told if you, as long as it's not been heated or driven, so I would feel obligated to put a new head on it. So then there's a head gasket and taking all this stuff back loose to take it down there. It's the timing chain cover, the timing chain, all this good stuff off, take it down there. So be diligent, guys. Be patient, be diligent. So I'm going to install this helicoil right here. Then we'll go with putting our intake on here. Mind you now also, these intake bolts, this is a 9422 RE, but I think from the 86 up they're the same. They just torqued to 14 foot-pounds, which is basically just a wrench. Take your wrench on there and just tighten it up. Don't tighten the piss out of them. They don't have to be that tight, trust me. They just have to be enough to seal right here. This thing's going to create a vacuum itself, which will seal it, which I'm pretty confident is why the torque spec's not that high. Same way with the cam and the bolt that was stripped out on the cam. Somebody torqued the piss out of it, and it was only supposed to be torqued to, I think, like the same thing, 14 or 18 foot-pounds, which is not a lot, guys. So the case is installed. Basically on side the tap, I come with the set. Picked up CarQuest. Told me what size drill bit to use, which was a 21/64 for. This is a M8 by 1.25. This is also the hex bolt that goes underneath the water pump. So basically what you do is you drill it out. A little spring insert goes in there and it goes down in there until it bottoms out. Make sure that you don't force on this when you push it, when you put this in. Put it in to where it stops at. Don't over drill it. Now what I do was drill it. Got it drilled out and I measured how deep it was. I blowed it out. Well, I covered all this up because you sure don't want any of this going down in your engine. Do that, install that. After I get that installed, now I'm going to pull this cover or this tape right here off, just like this. And then it's time to install the intake, finally. This, all this stuff on here, had to use helicoil on not one bolt. The one that the dumbass had pulled out is the new one you see right here. Though I have the old one, I figured a new one would be a good call. So I had to put helicoil in that one. And I also had to use helicoil in this bottom one right here. That one right there. So I got them on there. The smog stuff right here. Also had the helicoil that. So I got that on there. Thing hooked up. Still have to put the smog thing on the back, right back here. Connect this one and this one back to this plate that goes here. And all it is a port that runs through and it grabs right here. Done that. Put everything else back on here. Put the vacuum lines, hooked them up. A good way to tell your vacuum lines are hooked up right is reference the first video or look at your pictures. I mean the first segment of this video, or reference pictures that you should have took. If not, you should be able to find a diagram online. The last note that I will add to this is when I was putting a timing chain cover on, I knew this went somewhere, but I wasn't sure which screw, if it went on this side or this side. So after inspection, I realized this is the bracket holds the alternator. You take the dipstick bolt loose right here, then you take this timing chain cover bolt loose right here, and that slides on there, and then you tighten it down. So I guess that's it, guys. That's pretty much a wrap. I can do you a slow over of these vacuum lines. While you got these off, it's a good idea if you want to go ahead and replace these. If they're cracked or look bad, then replace them. These don't look that bad. Had one bad spot, so I went ahead and took care of it, which was easy. I was able to cut it and just slide that thing forward. Here's the rest of it. So vacuum line, top two there. There's them. Now this is a 94. Have an 88 22 RE out there, and it only has two ports coming out here. Two in the front, two going out the top, and then two on the side right here. And when you put this back on here, it's really simple. After the intake, a stud here, your other stud, which is right down there. That ball has to come all the way off. That one you just loosen up, and then this piece, this vacuum railing, just sits down in there. To get that, guys, should be pretty good from there. This is the way the owner gave me the engine. This is the exact same way I'm going to give it back to him. He's going to put it in. Make sure I get him to take us a firing up video. The last note that I want to make sure that I let you guys aware of is I haven't put this thing top dead center because he's going to order new spark plug wires and things. So what I've done was get top dead center on this crank right here. You line this little mark right here up with the 0 mark that's on this. This is on your new oil pump. If it's not on your new oil pump and you don't replace it, it should be on your old oil pump. Never clean it off though. Line these two marks up. Then this distributor cap. You line it up like that. The rotor button on this side. This is the compression stroke, top dead center. If it was the, I think the exhaust stroke, then it's a completely 180 degrees off. So this button will be pointing that way. So that thing in time, we'll be ready to put our spark plugs in and fire it up. Go from there. Guys, that's a quick overview on how to rebuild a 22 RE. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you give me some thumbs up. If not, I know there's a lot of stuff that I didn't record or I might have did wrong. It's been a while since I've actually done one of these little engines. Hopefully it's a learning experience for you all and everybody can understand this is something simple that you can do. It just takes time, some tools, a little bit of money. So you guys make sure you be good or good at it, and like I always say, your rig, your call.